for security specifications only, they can now provide business intelligence information that improves operational efficiency. And this is where Dahua's 3D people counting camera can help. So one of the great things about this camera is that it can provide retailers with customer demographics that's going to help them drive better marketing strategies and also improve their business profitability. So for example, video surveillance footage can be used to analyze how customers are moving throughout the store, such as where they're heading to most often, how much time they're spending in certain areas, where they stop, and what type of areas that they're spending their time and where they're looking. So they can then review the footage, and that will help them determine which areas are the best areas for putting certain types of merchandise. It's also going to help them figure out what areas are causing bottlenecks and maybe foot traffic congestion, and then this will allow them to create a more efficient shopping experience. So for the 3D people counting camera, for animals and people that have stereoscopic vision, each eye sees a similar but very slightly different image. And I kind of compare it to, those 3D Viewmasters that you may have had when you were a kid. It kind of is a good example. So you see similar but a slightly different image, and this difference is referred to as retinal or binocular disparity. So the brain really processes these images in a way that allows the person or the animal to slightly see around an obstacle without actually having to physically move. So this process is accomplished by matching the different images and then taking into account the differences of the two images. Now, although the visual differences are very small, the end result is in significant improved depth perception. So this is kind of how this camera works. And that's why it's able to give you much more accuracy than just a standard people counting camera. So now, even before the pandemic, OSHA was urging the adoption of crowd control protocols as a very critical step for employers and store owners to make sure, employees and customers had a good shopping experience, and especially during shopping rushes, not only just Black Friday, but even, when stores are closing and people are rushing around, or rushing to get in there to get all the great deals, this can be very advantageous. And also, maybe even for other large crowd events where there's a lot of gathering. So when the store reaches the user's defined maximum capacity, then no additional customers are able to enter the store until the occupancy levels drop. Now, during the pandemic, I'm sure you've all seen people were actually standing there counting, and holding people back and saying, okay, we have to wait for another person to come out and then you can go in. So this would be advantageous for making it more automated, and then you don't have to do any type of people counting manually. So now the dual 3-megapixel 3D people counting camera, it features most of the typical specifications that you would find in a regular camera, such as true day and night. It also has a built-in microphone, onboard storage. It has starlight technology we're seeing in low light scenes, and integrated IR up to 32 feet. And the camera also gives you critical data so that your customers can optimize their store's performance. So For example, it has the capability to answer questions such as how many people have visited your store each day, and of those people, how many of them made a purchase. And then that's great data for marketing to be able to make plans to their marketing plan. And it also automatically counts in real time the number of people that are passing under the stereoscopic camera and in which direction. Now, one thing to note is that in regards to the SD card, the camera actually records through the internal flash drive of the camera for about an average of a year. So currently, people counting data can only be saved on the internal flash of the camera. There's no actual way to save that data onto your SD card. So it's really a standalone front-end intelligent people counting solution that is, allowing you to count people with up to a 98% accuracy in very high traffic areas. So another thing that it does offer in addition is that it has face detection. Another feature is the people counting, the perimeter protection, and also this one is EPOE. So the one thing that you do need to do prior to using the camera is you must first calibrate the device, which is very easy and just takes a few minutes to do. So what you would want to do once you get your camera set up and installed is you would just select the people counting, you go into the calibration configuration tab, and then you just fill in, the installation that you, height that you put it at and its angle, save all that data, and it's going to be able to calibrate so that it properly counts your people. Another great thing about this camera is that the reports that it can do, if you are using DSS, it can do a little bit better of a reporting job, a little bit more detailed information, but this is actually the report, the people counting report from the actual camera itself. And so you can see here, you can just go up to that report there on that tab, and it'll indicate all of your data down here. So the data can also be calculated either daily, you could do it weekly, monthly, you could do it yearly, and it does data into a CSV format. So you can put that right into Excel to analyze your data. So the one upgrade with this camera, so if you're familiar with our line, we did have a predecessor version, so this is the successor to that. And the upgrade that was included is that the Smart Codec and your Analytics Plus functions can now be enabled simultaneously. So before you had to make a choice. Do you want to save more on your bandwidth and storage by utilizing your Smart H.265 Plus? Or do you want to use, the analytics? So you had to make a choice there. So sometimes, you want to use those analytics, but then you couldn't be saving on storage and bandwidth. So now you're able to enable both of those simultaneously. So you get the benefits of both. So for the people counting rules, we offer a total of 8 rules. So you get 4 tripwire counting rules and then also 4 that are people counting. So this is the area over here, just an example of where you would go in and specify your rules there. So audio linkage is another feature and benefit of this camera. And this is something that the predecessor didn't offer because you can actually import your own voice via the built-in microphone, and it has also a built-in speaker. So the audio linkage allows you to get a customized alarm. So over here, you can just add a file or you could actually just do a recording, whatever it is that you want to customize yourself with the built-in speaker. And then this is just a screenshot of showing where you would click the audio linkage and then how many times you want to play that particular message, and then the file there. So the active alarm works simultaneously with the IVS rules, and so there's several events under the IVS. So you have your tripwire intrusion, abandoned object, fast moving, parking detection, crowd gathering estimation, missing object, and loitering detection. So you could utilize the active alarm with any of those IVS rules. So like I said, it has a 98% accuracy, so it's able to determine, what's a good person to count, and where, maybe, if somebody went towards the line, as in this example, and then right there's your tripwire, and then they decide, well, I'm going to turn around, it's not going to count them. And the same thing with this one, this person came through the tripwire, yeah, they should be counted, but then they exited right away, so it's not going to count them. So it's accurately able to distinguish not only that, but also it can distinguish from adults or children and even shopping carts. So you can indicate within the camera, even the height of what type of person you want to be counted. So maybe children are not counted. So in this particular case, it's not going to count the shopping cart because perhaps you put in a specific height wise, and so you don't want shopping carts or maybe children counted. But in other cases, maybe you do want children counted. Maybe it's a daycare or something. And also it does not do any type of false results based on shadows. So this next slide just basically shows some recommended setup rules. So it does have 2 3-megapixel sensors, and each of them have a 2.8 millimeter lens. And so this over here is just your chart indicating, at what height that you would be installing it, then at what type of distance you would be able to detect objects. So for example, maybe you want to install it directly outside a customer's storefront, and then that way they would be able to determine how many people are passing their store each day that maybe are not coming into the store. So there's the potential for more business, but those people aren't coming in. So then marketing would be able to go in and figure out, well, what can we do to get those people to come into the store, since, they're there, but they're just not coming in. So you may want to do that right outside. Or another option would be to install it inside the store to determine, again, where people are spending most of the time. So here's just a simulated shot of, maybe you don't have maybe it's a small establishment and you don't have a bartender or a bouncer at the door, and so maybe you want to get an alert once you've reached your capacity of people coming in to the bar, so it's not overcrowded. And then at that point there would be an alarm triggered, and then you would know, okay, well at this point, you need to send somebody to the door to not let any more people in because you've reached your capacity. So that could save you potentially a customer on, head count of number of people that they need to hire for the evening, because somebody doesn't have to stand there and watch the door until they've actually reached their capacity. So over here, you would just enter in your numbers here. This next slide is just another simulated example for marketing purposes, showing here just the, that maybe you want to set up the camera to determine, if somebody is standing at the counter for a certain amount of time. Maybe you want to set it up for 1 minute. If somebody's, lingering in this particular area for, a minute or two, that must mean that they most likely need help. So while the employee is able to be being efficient and doing other things like stocking shelves or maybe helping other customers, then they would get an alert indicating that, somebody is over here at the makeup counter or at the cash register that needs help. So the in-area number is what you would want to trigger an alarm for people that are just idling in an area. So over here, you would just set it up in area number. You would click on that, and then inside number, you would do in your parameter setup and indicate here your maximum and your minimum height levels. Okay, so it can also help in reducing loitering. So it could send an alert when there's people idling in the customer's view for a long period of time, maybe for not because they want help, but maybe, they're just idling and they shouldn't be, lingering in a certain area. And that might cause you to, send an employee over to that area to, ask them to leave the area, such as, idling outside a grocery store or a type of mart. So it can detect human-sized moving objects in a predetermined no loitering zone. So you could also actually use it for vehicles as well. So it would eliminate the need to spend man hours checking for loiterers. So again, you would just go over here to your in area, and then you would set up the regional statistics here of how long they're allowed to be there until you would get an alarm. Another just simulated image here just for marketing purposes, showing a makeup counter. So regional number statistics. So the inside number, which is right over here, that is going to do an alert. An alert is going to be triggered when the number of people defined is met. So if you want to set it up for a particular number of people, and then the type is going to indicate any number that's greater or less than 0 to 30. So a stranding alarm, this is an alarm that's triggered when a person stands in a defined area for the user's defined standing time. So stranding time indicates any number between 1 and 1800 seconds. So that's kind of like the loitering. So again, if somebody's standing here at the counter waiting to be helped and, 3 minutes go by, then an employee would perhaps get a notification that somebody needs help. And again, you can just specify that time, whatever you want that to be. It could also help with checking out lines and improving the efficiency. So maybe you want to set it up where, if there's more than 3 people that are standing in this particular area that's defined by the user, then the manager is going to get an alert so that they know to go ahead and open up another register to help customers get through the lines faster. So overall, some of the new features with this camera, it does have the built-in microphone and speaker, but it also now has the siren active alarm and also built-in 8 voices. So there's actually 8 voices that you can choose from, or again, like I said, you could enter in your own voice, and so you can import, whatever it is you want. It also supports people counting, like I said, for people counting for line crossing, and then people counting in 4 areas and for queue management. So you can filter it out based on height, as I mentioned before. It does do 30 frames per second at 3 megapixel. It does have digital wide dynamic range, and it has also the ePOE functionality, the smart dual codec, and also the Starlight technology. So for low light scenes, it's going to be ideal. So as I mentioned, really the difference between this type of camera and a regular camera in our line that also does people counting, it's really the stereoscopic analysis, the 3D is what you're getting from it. So if you really want high accuracy in people counting, we would recommend going with this type of camera compared to one of our regular cameras in our line that just has standard people counting. Because with this one, you're going to be able to specify the height range, so you can minimize the counting of children or shopping carts or wheelchairs or that type of thing if you need to. It's also going to do an alarm for regional number statistics, so when people are inside an area that exceeds the threshold, and also that standing or loitering. So you have an alarm when a person doesn't move from an area after so many seconds. So that's kind of the biggest difference between the two type of people counting analytics and devices that we have. So this is just a comparison of the old versus the new. So the new has now the ePOE capability, so it allows you to go further, transmit longer transmission runs without having any repeaters. So you're saving on those long runs because you don't have to install a repeater. You're also saving on installation time because you're not having to put a repeater in after, so many feet. It also allows you to convert from an analog installation over to pure IP, and that's just by using our converters with our ePOE technology. It now does 5 streams compared to the 3. It does 4 gigabyte in RAM, and also the illumination for Starlight technology is slightly better. Another slightly better feature is the IR distance now goes to 65 feet. It now does 30 frames versus 25. It now also has the IK10 rating and offers some new analytics such as the queue management, the perimeter protection, and also face detection. And it now offers a speaker. And 256 gigabyte is what the SD slot can take up to, so that's an improvement, and the price is lower. So you're getting all of these great additional new upgrades and benefits, but you're going to be paying less. So it's really a win-win there. We are out of the old version, so that one is no longer shipping. So we only have the new version now available. And really the part numbers stay the same except for this dash S2 at the end. So here's just an overview of what the box looks like and what the camera looks like. The pigtail here, you can see all the instructions, QR code, and all of your Allen wrench and your other accessories here. So this is just a blow up of your pigtail, so you can see your audio in and out, power input, alarm, Ethernet, your B slot. You would just look here on the side of the camera. So as I said, pricing $999.99, and this camera does have a 45 to 60 day lead time. From my knowledge, we got some in for this release, but we sold out of them. So there we are. I'm in the process of getting a new ETA, so more will be coming in. But like I said, this is considered a special camera, a special under our specialty line. So 45 to 60 day lead time. is what you can expect. Okay, so we're going to move on to our thermal now. So one of the best advantages about thermal cameras is they can detect fires at a very early stage before it has an opportunity to really get out of control. So really a crucial opportunity for saving lives, tangible assets, time, money, resources, everything. So, with a visible camera, typically you're not going to know that there's a fire if you're looking on a visual camera until you're already seeing flames, and at that point it's you better act really fast because it's pretty much too late at that point. Smoke detector, yes, it does give you a little bit more of a warning time, but nowhere near as close as what a thermal camera can do, because the thermal is going to be able to tell you when something is starting to get hot. So it's going to give a very early temperature warning. So this thermal network camera is actually a hybrid that we're bringing into the line, and provides an uncooled thermal sensor and supports rapid temperature increase, and can be used for either indoor or outdoor applications. So it combines one thermal lens for the monitoring in total darkness, and then you have one visible lens that's going to provide you with the details that you can see in color. So the thermal portion, 256 by 192 is your resolution. And we have it in two different offerings. You can do it either a 3.5 millimeter or a 7 millimeter fixed lens. And then the visible camera is going to be a 2 megapixel, and that will have either a 4 millimeter or an 8 millimeter fixed lens. And then the maximum IR distance for either one of those is going to be up to 114 feet. So the NETD on this camera is around 50 Kelvin, and that's your sensitivity. So really you want the lower the number, the better, and that's going to provide you with the less noise. So I just have an example over here kind of showing you the difference that you would see. This is an example of a 60 versus an 80 millikelvin, and you can see with the 80 that there's a lot more noise and pixelation in the image, and whereas at 60 there's quite a difference. It's much more clear and smooth, and you're not getting that pixelated effect. So like I said, ours is at 50. So the thermal camera is really great because it's going to provide that remote temperature monitoring, and that has the ability to trigger an alarm for a temperature that exceeds the user's defined threshold. So this feature is really ideal for your industrial applications where it may be dangerous for humans and where maintaining a consistent temperature is vital. So perhaps, just watching mechanical failures, because a lot of times you're not going to know when a machine is getting ready to go down, and unless it starts getting hot, and you're not going to be able to visually confirm that. So a thermal camera is going to help there. The camera is also great for detecting for, again, forest fires. Could be used in warehouses, any type of manufacturing facility as well. So this camera has a heat sensing technology, and so that helps to improve on perimeter security in areas with very poor visibility or difficult lighting conditions, or applications that are very, very dark. So this camera, as I mentioned, it does have the EPOE technology. It does do remote viewing and configuration with our free DMSS app, and it can do temperature measurement range anywhere from on the low side of -4 all the way up to 302 degrees, and on the high side 32 degrees Fahrenheit to 1022 degrees Fahrenheit. So the type of alarms that you can get is based on either IBS, human or vehicle, fire, temperature, hot spot alarm, cold spot alarm, temperature contrast alarm, and also a smoking detection alarm. So thermal cameras really have a lot of advantages, such as using it to detect people, objects, or any type of an incident in complete darkness and very difficult conditions such as smoke or haze, dust, any type of lighting, fog. So it's going to help in eliminating the need for extra lighting or floodlights. It's going to help reduce light pollution. And in addition, a thermal camera is also is a very reliable platform for integrating intelligent software applications. So a thermal network camera really detects the thermal radiation from an object, which is a more static parameter compared to the visual changes in an image. So here we have some different examples. So on the right-hand side, you can see this scene. This is a traffic scene, and these are just some examples that I pulled off the web. But this is an example of a scene with traffic just using a regular camera, and you can see those blooming headlights. You can't see anything. You can't see where the road is. You can't see how many cars are on the road, nothing. And then on the left-hand side is an example of a thermal camera. So you can see now that the visibility is much greater, is much crisper. You can see how many cars are on the road. You can define where the road is. In this next one, this foliage one, there's nobody there. You can't see anybody in this color picture because they're hidden. But now with the thermal camera, you can actually see their body heat, and actually somebody is standing there. And then another good application is with seaports, because it can be very, very bright light, like that's glaring off of the water especially. So it can be very difficult to get a clear shot of boats that are coming in. So it's very bloomed out here. There's a lot of blooming there. And then whereas a thermal camera, even during the day, it's just going to provide a much better visual image. Okay, so here's an example of our camera showing how the smoking detection alarm works. So see here, this is some type of a base, it looks like. And right, I actually must be smoking a cigarette. And so the camera alerting to that. So, the camera is some type of smoke. So that smoke alarm is identifying, who's ever watching the camera, that's what's going on there. Here is there's another visual video. And it's just showing that it's on a mountain of some sort, and you can see the flames are starting there. So ideally, this would be helping to prevent a fire from getting out of control, providing an early warning sign. And then this one here. You're going to start to see some movement right in this area. So you see all these people now all of a sudden are coming out from that area. And now it's going to start detecting. So necessarily detecting on the people, but now it's starting to detect because it's in flames. So it looks like, they must a fire, and the camera is showing that alert. And now they're really starting to get out of control there, and you start seeing the smoke. Okay. Okay, so as I mentioned, this camera has a smart alarm linkage. So the white light and the loudspeaker are going to be able to be deployed simultaneously when an abnormal behavior is detected. So the white light and the speaker are able to be configured, and you would do that right here. You would go down to the audio linkage, determine how long you want it to play for, the mode, whatever you want it to be saying. And then also you want the white light to come on too. Maybe you want it to flicker, and what your frequency is going to be, and then how long you want it to flicker for. So that would all be set right in this area. So pretty easy setup there. Again, just an overview of the type of applications that you can use this camera for. So again, power stations, cruise lines, construction, warehouse, manufacturing, anything that maybe you want to get an alert when something starts to heat up, in order to avoid, a fire or any type of further incident. So this is just an overview of the smoking detection feature. So the camera in this one is detecting the smoking behavior, but it's not actually going to alarm on the match or the lighter or maybe a hot cup. It's only going to alarm on the smoking behavior. So the visible light channel is going to detect the human head, and the thermal channel is going to be detecting the cigarette. So this over here is your visual of your visible camera, and then this is your thermal camera. Also, this camera can help in reducing false alarms because it's able to detect based on human and vehicle classification compared to sending an alarm from irrelevant objects like animals or weather conditions or that type of thing. So it's going to give you much higher accuracy in the alarms that it does do versus alarming for, just an animal or, debris that's blowing through the wind. The image infusion is pretty cool. This is a new thing on our cameras. This is the first camera to have this. And this is a mode that overlays your color details combined with your thermal imaging to help identify additional details that may have been missed, if you're just using one or the other. So it's going to provide more details to help identify objects that are hiding in view. So I outlined this here. So from this picture, it just kind of looks like maybe there's somebody here, but you really can't tell. And in fact, you could have possibly missed that. You really can't see it very well. But over here, you can actually see that it is a person, but then there's also something right here. So it almost looks like there's somebody hiding, standing right in this area as well. So this is just an example of what the fusion mode looks like, because it's able to bring out additional details that you wouldn't have necessarily seen with just the color camera. So active alarm, this camera has the white light illuminator and the external speaker that I already talked to you about. So can be triggered when the camera detects an abnormal event. So either whether it's through the thermal or the visible light sensor. So the camera will basically just take a snapshot of the scene, and then it can record that. So just a few things here on this one. So It does have a visible lens. That's this right here. Over here is where your thermal lens is. This is your LED light. And then this over here is going to be where your IR light is at. So just comparing this camera to another camera that's in our line that is somewhat similar, I just want to show you the comparison. So we have another one in our line. This new one has a -T at the end, and that T stands for temperature measurement, and where this one does not. So that's really going to be the difference if you are looking at our part numbers and you're looking for a camera that does temperature measurement. You want to look for a T at the very end. So these two cameras are pretty similar in a lot of the specs, but right here, the 3.6 millimeter and the 7.1 millimeter are your options for this camera. And also the fact that it does do the temperature measurement and smoking detection. That's going to be the differentiator there. So it's not a big price jump. You know, about $50 price jump for the temperature measurement one compared to the non-temperature measuring one. And so here's just some of the accessories that could be used with this camera if you choose to. So depending on how you want to mount it, you could use a tripod. Otherwise, we have these wall mounts or the ceiling mount. We have digital or displays, monitors, storage devices as well. So the other series that I'm going to introduce today too, so that was the 221. This is the 5401 and 5601. So these are pretty much just very, very similar to the one I just talked about, except it's not a hybrid. It doesn't have a dual lens. It's only the thermal. So if you would want the visible lens, you know, if you get this camera and then you decide, well, you know what, I do need a visible camera, then you would just have to install that separate because this is just the thermal camera. It does have the EPOE technology. You can use the remote viewing with Dahua's free DMSS software or app, but there is no P2P option. And so if you want to use the app for that, you do need to input the IP address. That was one of the technical notes that the team brought back. It's available in 2 different resolutions. You can get it either in a 400 by 300 lens option or a 640 by 512 option. And then your lenses can be either 7, 13, or 25 on both. So there's 6 new models, different resolutions, different fixed lens option. The alarm types on this one: rapid temperature rise detection, cold and hot spot trace, human and vehicle classification, tripwire, and intrusion. So very similar to the one that we just talked about. So really just the differences between the two is all of the specifications are going to be the same between the 54 and the 56. It's really just the resolution that's different. 640 by 512. So you're getting, you know, the better resolution. You're getting higher resolution compared to the 400 by 300. Again, it just depends on what it is that you're monitoring. And then as far as detection distance goes, again, it's going to depend on what you're monitoring, but you could visually, you know, see with the 5601 humans up to 725 feet with the 7.5 millimeter, 13 millimeter up to 1,253 feet, and the 25 millimeter up to 2,411 feet for detection. So the contents of what's in this one, similar to the previous one that I spoke of. So there's your pigtails, and here's your guides, your setup information, mounting template, QR code to find the manual online. So here's just a couple of test notes for those of you that are more techie. I thought I would just include this just in case, you know, it just might make your life a little bit easier so you know what you're getting into with this camera. So just a couple things on here. If you are using one of our NVRs like the N52, the thermal alarms must be set in the camera first. So you can go into the thermal alarm menu of the N52 to set the NVR for minor setup, and then you would go into your alarm information to get a history of the thermal alarms triggered. So there's no option for a clip of the event. So that's one thing you would want to keep in mind there if you're using it with the 52. If you're using it with the 41 or 42, it does not have capabilities to receive a thermal alarm. If you're using these with the 4216i, does not have the capability to receive a thermal alarm as well. I already mentioned the P2P, and the audio out sound level is somewhat low. So if you are going to be using the audio sound level, the audio out, it is recommended to use an amplified speaker. And then over here is just the versions that that we're on for all of the different recorders, or DSS Express, DSS Pro, DMSS. Okay, so pricing and availability. So these are all specialty cameras, so typically 45 to 60 day lead time. I know that we are getting a handful of them in just to kind of start out with, but I am waiting on confirmation on those arrivals. We're just launching these now. And then here's all your pricing in both US and Canadian for each of the models. So with that, Rebecca, I am actually going to turn it back over to you now.
Great, thank you so much, Jennifer, for covering all of that. As a reminder, if you have any questions, please go ahead and enter those in the questions box now, and we're going to get to those in a minute. And we are going to be providing a copy of the presentation as well as of the recording. That'll be available in the dealer portal later this week. So we're going to go ahead and take a peek, and it looks like we just have a few questions so far, so we'll go ahead and we'll dive into those. And again, if you're looking to join us on future webinars, our next webinar will be on the 26th, next Wednesday, on DSS Express. And we do have resources available on Dahua Wiki that cover the products discussed today, as well as all of our other products, especially for more of those technical questions. So Jennifer, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to the questions right now.
Okay,
it looks like you have a question about the sensor.
Yeah, so I see that there's a question regarding the visible sensor in regards to what the data sheet says. In regards to the shutter speed control. So I will need to follow up on that data sheet. I'm not sure, I don't have it right in front of me, but I'm not sure what the thermal is. I know that you're saying the visible sensor's there, but unfortunately, it does not have it for the other one. So we'll have to do an update, and I will get back to you, and we'll make sure that it gets posted online. Unfortunately, I don't have the answer right now. And Rebecca, I think that about does it.
All right, well, thank you so much. If you have any questions on the products discussed today, our sales team is always available and happy to talk to you. And our technical team is available as well if you have installation questions. And we hope that you'll join us for future webinars. So thank you so much for your time today.